What's up, everybody? Welcome to Two Sons Podcast.
If you guys could take a second to hit that subscribe button and follow us on all of our social media profiles, I'd really appreciate it. The other theme of the episode that I thought resonated with me the most was like the parallels between the sparring session and a pretty consistent theme that Anakin's just a loose cannon that they've spent. So
He's an angry little man.
Exactly. And one of the first indicators of this that we saw was when the clone transport drops off Obi Wan and Anakin on the platform on Geonosis, and then Obi Wan starts to like tell him about a strategy that they're going to attack Count Dooku with as a team, and Anakin just goes, "I'm taking him now," and then like sprints at him, and then he just immediately gets messed up.
Right.
But the point is that's a pretty consistent theme, that Anakin's impatient and direct and overly aggressive and blah blah blah. So one of the places that I remember initially learning about sparring sessions, I read a book. It actually, not to get down a huge rabbit hole, but there was a book that ended up being basically a prequel to the Yuzhan Vong stuff that took place in the expanded universe before Disney took over.
Which low-key is like one of your favorite.
It's an incredible Star Wars storyline that I think is a really interesting concept. But at the same time, like, it was the first time that I think Star Wars got outside of its scope a little bit.
Oh, I see.
And we don't have to go down that road right now, but it gets weird. Like, they're from a different galaxy, so like they're not even attached to the Force in any way, shape, or matter. So like the Force is like this weird like deity, but only in this galaxy. It's complicated, but anyway, there's a prequel of it, and basically Anakin and Obi-Wan end up going to Zonama Sikat, which is this planet that actually was effectively a scout planet that was sent ahead by the Yuzhan Vong. It's this complicated thing, but in it there's a bunch of sparring stuff at the beginning of the book. And,
I see.
And it's really interesting. So essentially the lightsabers have controls and you can turn down the power. And essentially if you turn the lightsabers down to a low enough power level, if I were to like swing as hard as I can and hit you, all it would do is leave a light little burn on your arm. It wouldn't like sever your arm or something like that. So what all the younglings and Padawans and everyone does to train is they turn their lightsabers down and they have these sparring matches.
There's just one youngling that forgets to turn his down. Just severs an arm. Oh no!
Exactly. It's like, ooh. But actually, I vaguely remember that being a plot point in one of the books.
Oh really?
Just like one of the young Padawans is like a little bit too ambitious and ends up hurting someone and ends up being a big deal. But anyway, that I thought that the sparring session's cool. It's like, oh,
that was cool.
Yeah, it's our 4 p.m. sparring session. Like I meet Obi-Wan up here, we throw down, and I've never beat him before, but today I'm gonna beat him. And then I go up there and I'm super aggressive. There's the repeat of some of the stuff that you see from him in episode 2 and 3, where like he's kind of just hacking away with his lightsaber recklessly,
just
like
out
with
of
power,
anger.
And basically throughout the whole episode, you could tell it's like a parallel. It's like, who's that?
Lola, come here, baby.
But there's this kind of vibe where it's a kind of like the pathway of their conflict, to where Anakin has an advantage, but he doesn't perceive his surroundings well enough, and Obi-Wan turns the tables on him, which is what happens to him and Mustafar, and ends up being a pretty consistent theme for the two of them.
There was also a really cool part too in both of those scenes where a lightsaber was taken away from the competitor. Right? So I thought that was really cool too, because you only see that when there's a true advantage of someone against the other person. Like losing your lightsaber during a battle is a huge deal, right? So so it's cool to see that happen too. So
and like in general too, I think you can start to see a little bit of exasperation from Obi-Wan, and you see that a lot in Revenge of the Sith. And I wonder if that was intentional, that they placed that sparring match with Anakin still as a Padawan rather than later on when he's got the long hair and stuff. Which, by the way, I thought they did a good job of like it was very clearly older Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
But they did just enough like fuzzing of the lines
Wrinkles,
to make
yeah.
it passable. And I'm not going to be super picky about that stuff
I'm not
because
either.
like my thing is like we also have a recasted Obi-Wan, you know, like
Right.
essentially from Alec McGuinness. So it's like you have to kind of accept the fact that like as long as it as a viewer kind of sucks you into what the experience was supposed to be. And I thought they did an outstanding job of recreating what Obi-Wan looked like.
I did
in
too.
Attack of the Clones with his like weird long hair,
Yeah.
kind of like set back type of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole thing was just really, really cool. And another thing that I thought when I saw that, because I was like, they're on this beautiful terrace that's overlooking
I was thinking,
Coruscant.
I was wondering if you're gonna bring that up.
All I could think is like, what a dope life being a Jedi would have been.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It would have been sweet. But then also, so something that it seems like this show is trying to focus on is contrast, right? So it also contrasted the lifestyle that Obi-Wan had versus the lifestyle that he has now.
Mm-hmm.
Like essentially desert rat.
He's a vagabond desert rat,
Yeah.
like person floating through the galaxy as
Yeah.
a runaway versus like
Living
a
on
titan of the Jedi Order.
Exactly,
Yeah.
like up in the upper levels of Coruscant. So, and anybody who's read any of like the Plagueis books, or even watched any of like the Rebels series knows that like the lower you get on Coruscant, the poorer you are, essentially, and the higher you are in Coruscant, the more wealthy or affluent you are. And so it's
you
cool
learned
to see
that in
the
High
difference.
Republic, remember? So in High Republic, there's one little tiny mountaintop that's God knows how tall, and it's like the one remaining piece of visible Earth on Coruscant.
Yeah.
And so like you can effectively assume that the entire planet is tens of thousands of feet built off the ground.
Yeah.
Which is insane to think about, but it's such a cool
It's
like
crazy
kind of
to think about.
a Star Wars concept. Did you have
Yeah.
any additional notes?
So, what was your thoughts on the Tala and Roy robot scene?
So yeah, I put that in my notes too as Tala's sacrifice, and it's something that they've done a really good job of in Rebels, in this show, in Rogue One, in Solo. This idea of like you know, I think that George Lucas was trapped in a lot of ways by the scale of what his technology was at the time.
Yeah.
To really capture the scale of the conflict. Like no different than with A New Hope. Like in A New Hope, literally like you can assume that maybe 20 fighters left from Yavin 4, and then you only see 6 TIE fighters come to fight them.
Yeah.
And then you see 3 additional TIE fighters, including Vader's TIE Advanced, to fight in the trenches. So like you're trapped by like the scale of the whole thing, and you kind of feel like there's sacrifice in there with the pilots who died in that conflict.
I see.
But like I think George Lucas has been able to through what he's done, but also through Disney, has done a really good job of like painting the sacrifice of the rebellion. And it's such an important thing, because like you have to think like to overthrow an empire, I mean, which is something that's happened in human history dozens of times. It requires people who are literally willing to sacrifice their lives to do something like this. And I mean, you think about like with someone like Tala, she's in the Empire. She's probably well paid.
Yeah.
And she does tell the story.
That
in the
backstory
episode,
was cool.
The backstory about them killing the Force sensitive families, and it's just another example of what we talked about earlier in the series, which is like when you do evil things, you run the risk of creating enemies. It's like I talk about this with my wife all the time, especially with the business that I'm in, which is very public. Like, there's just never a good reason to burn a bridge, because it's easier to navigate life when you don't have enemies. And it was just kind of cool to see like the Empire, through their ruthlessness, which the Sith believed the ruthlessness would breed peace. Yeah. But all it really did was breed them enemies. Yeah. And then enemies who would give anything to bring them down. Yeah. And that ended up being what happened.
No, you're totally right. No, I thought that was a really cool scene. Somehow Star Wars just knocks out the idea of making a robot feel even like more human than a human.
Dude, they're so good at that.
I know. You see that, a little bit with R2D2. But again, we're talking about limitations of original Star Wars, and there's no CGI, so it would be really hard to make that type of droid feel really human. But then you really see that with K2SO and Rogue One.
Remember in Solo
oh yeah.
And then BD1 in Jedi Fallen Order is a huge one. That is a huge recurring theme in Star Wars.
So Roy can't even talk. He's got no facial expressions, and for some reason that was like one of the most emotion evoking scenes of this whole entire show. And his face, seeing him with Tala, and then as they both essentially die together. I mean, that was incredible, and I don't know how they do it. Like literally, he's a robot. Like his eyes were fixed in place. He has no mouth. He can't say anything. I don't even think they made him make any noises. Like it was just like the
not
idea.
Even a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really, really cool. One of the cool thing that I thought too was we were talking about it feeling like classic Star Wars, and this is one of the reasons why it really felt like Star Wars, and it kind of felt like newer age stuff with like the siege scene. But they even used like an orchestra in one of the scenes where you see the Star Destroyer, and there's the two ships that get deployed out of it. And so for anybody who missed it, watch it again, and you'll hear like a really cool, like a really short bit from like an orchestra, which made it totally feel like classic Star Wars.
I'm always amazed by your ability to perceive these kinds of things. I was trying really hard today, and the only one that really stood out to me, and again, it's not even in the background because it's Obi-Wan like picks him up and plays with him, but they have like these like crates that appear to be like relics. Old lightsabers, and it appeared that he picked up some Jedi robes. Is what I was thinking, and all I could think is like these are presumably Jedi who passed away, and they're just kind of keeping all these things on display as a reminder of what they're fighting for and stuff like that. But that was the only thing I could pick up because like I'm just so bad at looking at the background while I'm watching.
No, you're good at overarching things, though.